What did you think when you heard about China's move?
I think, we've seen the resiliency of the crypto markets to sort of changing regulation and specifically changing regulation in China several times before. It's very hard to eventually predict, how any change impacts the gatekeepers or the various players in the market. But it's very clear that it's impossible to regulate Bitcoin itself as the protocol and people's usage of sort of the decentralized protocol, whether it's Bitcoin or others. I think in general, there's a lot of discussion about the fact that, in September 2017, there was also sort of a big China ban on crypto, on exchanges. And after that, we saw sort of the first big crypto rally of 2017 of Bitcoin reaching back then the records of 2017. I think, sometimes when you think about regulating Bitcoin, it's like, a multiple-headed monster. You try to cut its head, and then you get 5 additional heads. So it's very interesting to see that resiliency of the protocol itself.
Yeah, you definitely just called Bitcoin Hydra, but that's cool. We'll just go with that. But to your point, that's going to be the bull's point, that there's going to be lots of different avenues and lots of different people who want to wind up trading Bitcoin. If China really cracks down and says you can't own it, which they didn't say, but say they say you can't own it, you can't use it at all, and you can't trade it, how does that not have a material impact on the price and the volume that it can trade with?
I think the global economy, as a global economy, is much bigger than any single state. We're seeing a transition globally, by the way, in capital markets as well, from capital markets being hyper-local, where people only trade locally, to capital markets being global. And then obviously, crypto markets are hyper-global, the opposite of local capital markets. There's definitely, there's always going to be impact of various regulations in the crypto market, but I think we'll also see the resilience of a global monetary decentralized system. And there's going to be a shift that we started seeing, an exciting shift this year, more towards DeFi, to decentralized finance, to various protocols. I think this will shift the industry more towards DeFi.
Of course, the potential bigger risk for cryptocurrencies, and I think, Yoni, we may agree that other cryptocurrencies are the bigger threat to central banks rather than Bitcoin, which is kind of in a class of its own, for better or worse. But the risk is the other central banks, notably the Federal Reserve and certainly the ECB, weighing in and actually deciding how and when and in what form these things can trade, and whether the central banks want their own fiat-based digital currency, which could happen. How big a risk is that? And is that some of what we're seeing priced in here?
So, as always, I'm an optimist, so any risk is an opportunity. There's no doubt we're seeing, the genie's out of the bottle. We're seeing the digitization of money. We're seeing digital transformation happening to money, which is the biggest digital transformation of everything. And I think the blockchain technology represents that shift. Bitcoin represents a new type of global commodity, and regulators will look for ways to regulate and governments to innovate. I think we'll see a lot of central banks and governments launching their own digital currencies. I think this will run in parallel to what we call today the crypto markets. It's a different type of an asset. But I think, this process of moving the entire monetary system into the digital realm is definitely something, sort of an arms race between a lot of different countries around the world.
Yoni, last question here quickly. Since China made that announcement, what kind of trading have you seen on your platform?
Well, we generally see trading patterns sort of really reflect with volatility. So as volatility is higher, we see more trading activity. And as price goes up, so, we've seen in May that correction that lowered prices of Bitcoin from all-time high after the mining ban. Then we've seen an awakening on a lot of the DeFi protocols in the beginning of August, which sort of revived a lot of new protocols, as well as Bitcoin price and ETH reaching almost 4,000 again. And I think now with that correction, we're seeing markets that are a bit softer than they were a month ago.